Hi everyone, this is Mike Koenigs. Welcome to Digital Cafe TV. I'm here with my very good friend and my favorite mentor, Gay Hendricks. If you don't know who he is, he's the genius creator behind the Spiritual Cinema Circle. It's kind of like Netflix for spiritually conscious films, as well as he's the author of 33 books, including bestsellers Conscious Loving, The Corporate Mystic, and his latest one, The Big Leap. Now, a little bit about Gay. He and his wife, Dr. Gay Hendricks, are world-renowned for their seminars on relationship transformation and body-mind wellness. And Gay is a PhD holder from Stanford. He graduated in 1974. He served as a professor of counseling psychology at the University of Colorado for 2 decades. Now, I'm going to talk to him a little bit about the Big Leap. And it's all about how you can discover your zone of genius and transcend your upper limit boundaries. I know it sounds like a mouthful, but trust me, this is great stuff. And what I'm really excited about is I have written down some big questions that I have for Gay, all about starting your own business, getting past your stuff, and really finding what you're great at. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my greatest mentor, Mr. Gay, Dr. Gay Hendricks. So, my friend, it is a great pleasure to have you here.
Great to be with you again. I always look forward to our conversations.
I know it. It's like every time I feel like I shed 1,000 pounds of stuff I didn't even know was attached to my, I don't know if I'd call it my soul, but my spirit. And not only are you a practical man who's, kind of been there, done that, and done it all, but I think you're one of the most well-balanced people I know. And that's why I consider you my greatest mentor.
Well, thank you. Well, I figured out early on the difference between rich and wealth, and I went for wealth. And, in order to have wealth, you've really got to have the whole financial thing working, but you've also got to have your relationships working and your health working, so you want to kind of enjoy the whole thing.
Right. And I think just to pre-frame everyone here, one of my goals is for folks to walk away and feel as though they can answer the biggest question I get all the time, which is, how do I get started? But we're going to talk about bigger, deeper things than that. And I want to tell everyone that one of the things that you said to me early on, I was at your house in Ojai, and this is probably a year ago or so, I think, and it touched me at the deepest level because you said to me, Mike, what can I do to make your dreams come true? And what struck me with such depth was, A, you're convicted to do it. Yeah, is that what the proper word? But more importantly, I knew you could make it happen because you have the ability to maneuver pieces in the galactic game of chess, unlike most people alive, which, it's sort of like you've got your fingers and it's beyond fingers. It's a combination of relationships. It's kind of a karmic energy form, and you have the ability to turn intentions into objects. And again, I hope I'm not losing too many people with such deep stuff, but it's part of what makes you so attractive, and I think everyone who you touch in your life and in their lives feels exactly the same way. It's something you always leave behind. And I really want to talk to you about that, and what has given you the power to be able to make dreams come true?
Well, I think the big thing, I was my own best customer. I figured out early on in life, in my 20s and early 30s, where I had bought into dreams that weren't even my own dreams. And so a lot of it, I think, does come from just kind of sitting down and figuring out, what do I most love, and what do I most love to do, and what do I most want to contribute here. And that's a process that I think you've done a really wonderful job of in yourself, is figuring out, what is my contribution and what do I really want to do. And so it does start, it's kind of an inner game at first to start out in there. And I actually think that most people have it backwards in life. They kind of think if they have certain things, it'll make them feel a certain way.
Yeah.
But it's actually going ahead and finding out what would help me feel that certain way first, and then doing things out of that sense of being rather than doing it the other way around. And so I remember sitting down on the floor in my apartment way back when I had a little tiny apartment, and just deciding I was going to sit there until I figured out what the purpose of my life was. And
so how long did that take?
It took me about an hour, actually. I just sat there and kind of meditated on it. And what I came up with at the end of that hour was that the purpose of my life is to expand in love and creativity every day as I inspire others around me to do the same.
Wow.
And so once I figured that out, that was really what I was about, it's been basically being on vacation ever since. And so wherever I'm doing that and however I'm doing that, as long as I'm doing that, I'm happy. And I'm just blown away, happily blown away by the fact that it's created a lot of wealth and things like that, because I love all that stuff too.
Yeah,
and
of course.
I'm glad I'm still not sitting there in that little tiny apartment thinking, wow.
Yeah, exactly. What a great idea. Yeah, exactly. And then spending the rest of your time wishing,
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, once you take on that inner game in there of finding out what it is you love to do and what it is you really want to contribute, it opens up a space for you. Like I would say within an hour after I got up off that floor, I got a call from somebody to tell me about a book that they were interested in writing. And I said, well, hey, why don't we co-author it together? And then Zoom. The book became a bestseller. And so one thing kind of leads to the other, and good things happened coming out of that, taking on that inner game.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat what I believe I hear, which is the first step is really all about defining the what, and the how magically follows.
Yeah.
You find the how, or the how finds you.
The how finds you. I think that's the way it works a lot of the time.
Yeah. I would agree with that. That is pretty interesting. So I'm going to stay as high level as we can here, and I want to ask you, in your mind, what makes people successful?
All right, good. The very first thing I think we really ought to think about is, what is success? And for me, I define wealth as having everything I want and enjoying everything I have.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm wealthy because I have everything I want and I enjoy everything I have to the best of my ability to enjoy it. And so if you start from that premise, then you really want to find out what it is that I most want. What do you most want of everything that's possible in the world? And that gets that flow of energy. See, because a lot of people don't think that they are connected to the universe. They think, here's the universe over here, and here's me over here. But where else would you be but as part of the fabric of the universe? So if you start from the premise that I am connected to everything else in the universe, then the issue becomes, what can I contribute here? What can I bring forth that would make this universe a better place? What could I bring forth that would make our lives better and our relationships better? And if we put our energy on that, thinking of ourselves as part of the fabric of the universe and creating new things, then I think we're on the right track.
Right. So it does come from a place of giving and contribution, of course.
Well, that's a really good point, because think of it in terms of breathing.
Yeah.
If you try to take an in-breath, you can't really take a full in-breath unless you first breathe out all the way. So the first is, what can I contribute? What can I really express into the world? What can I really contribute to other people? What can I do for you that would make your life better? And I keep my focus on that. And then it produces a nice little stream, then you start thinking, wow, what could I do to make his life better? And so we get into this nice stream of contributing to each other.
Yeah, that's the grand old law of reciprocity, isn't it?
I love it.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah, it does like crazy. The universe repays in dividends over and over again when you come from that place.
And a lot of our problem, though, starts from not thinking of it that way. It's like if a farmer went out into the field and said, okay, you give me some corn and then I'm going to water you. Okay, it wouldn't work very well. Right. So you got to go out there and water your corn and appreciate it and make a contribution first, and then watch what happens.
Cultivation is an important concept, isn't it not? Yeah. And that's I was talking to a good friend of mine yesterday who he had a interesting story. He's a guy who's been in my life about 20 years. And he's very successful in a lot of ways. He's really good at manifesting stuff, but whether it's money, business, a lot of wealth in his life. And he's spent over 20 years cultivating relationships with some of the biggest money, it turns out, in Minneapolis, money families like the Cargill family and the Dayton Hudson family and the Carlson family. And if anyone knows of them, these are, billionaire families. And And you could say, well, it's all selfish, or it's not. I mean, he genuinely has great relationships with these people, but now it's reached a point where so many of these people have come into their wealth. Either their families are dying and that kind of thing, and he has access to hundreds of millions of dollars, as well as he's given and given and given. He's cultivated this, and it. When you think about it, on one hand, you could say, well, it's a purely selfish act, and at the same time, it's the way the universe does pay you back in a lot of ways. So I want to transition that. First of all, I'm just interested what your comment is. I have no agenda, but I'm curious conceptually what you think of that cultivation process. And I'm going to ask you a specific question.
Well, I think one thing is to really trust that and gain experience in the fact that if you contribute to somebody else's life first, that will benefit you. Mm-hmm. And to keep that in mind all the time is one of the most sacred parts of life. Because when I go to sleep at night, one of the things I do to go to sleep at night is ask myself, what can I do tomorrow more to contribute to the life of a quality life on our planet than I did today. Mm-hmm. And just keep looking for more and more opportunities to do that. And I think that's a great way to create wealth, because then it keeps you in areas that you're not out there making enriching uranium for bombs, and that kind of thing. You're looking at ways to make things better here.
Right. So some of the questions are, what else can I do right now, or what more, how much more value can I add? There are always more questions.
Yeah, and actually the number one question that I asked my wife in our marriage over the past 29 years is, and I probably ask it to her once or twice a week, mm-hmm. so hundreds and hundreds of times, is there anything that I could be doing that would make your life better? Mm-hmm. That's something we just ask each other on a regular basis. Is there anything that I could be doing that would make your quality of life any better?
Isn't that huge?
And most of the time her answer is, wow, no, that's as good as I can imagine it getting right now. But occasionally she'll say, yeah, you could do something rather, and then that gives me something to do.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. So here's the question. What do you think the difference is between being rich and being wealthy?
Well, I just brought to mind Chris Rock's answer to that question. I don't know if you ever
I love this. Go ahead.
Yeah. He said, Shaquille O'Neal, he's rich, okay? But the guy that writes Shaquille O'Neal's check, he's wealthy. That's a really good distinction.
It is
there.
Awesome, yeah.
Yeah, because what you want to look for in life, and what I look for, is not just a treasure map, but I want to look for the box that has the treasure maps in them, because having a treasure map is okay. I mean, that's pretty cool. I've had some nice treasure maps, but what I like to do is look for where they're stored. Where do they come from? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that human beings have really got to learn on this planet, and I'm glad that you're bringing out the message, is that we have this treasure chest inside ourselves, this incredible ocean of consciousness that's just birthing ideas all of the time. And if we will let ourselves open up and listen to that and feel that, we have an amazing set of treasure chests that's opening all the time. Mm-hmm. I read in an astronomy journal a while back that they found a place out in space that's giving birth to 32 suns, S-U-N, suns, every second. 32 suns like our sun are coming out of this universal hotspot out there sometime. And with that amount of power, just imagine what human beings are capable of doing, because we're made of the same stuff. We're made of that same universal substance, and we have access to that open flow of creative ideas inside ourselves all the time if we don't keep whacking ourselves with our upper limit problem.
Yes. Immeasurable wealth, as they would say. So that's a very, very good point. So anyone who's listening to you right now is hearing all these little gems of genius. So I want to ask you, who have you modeled over the course of your career and your life?
Yes. There have been a bunch, but one person that pops out immediately is, although he's much younger than me, actually, I had the opportunity to do some coaching with Michael Dell some years ago, and one of the smartest people I've ever met on this planet, just an amazing guy. And an inspiration to any one of you that are college dropouts, because he dropped out of college as a sophomore, I think, and borrowed $1,000 from his parents to launch this computer business. And
Right.
I believe they've made about $150 million off that investment so far. So it was a good move. Parents, if you're listening out there and your kid comes and says, "Let me borrow $1,000, I got an idea," don't stint on that, okay? Michael, though, just the first time I met him, I saw something that was so awesome, and it was almost so simple, but I want to just highlight it, okay? Because listen to this. His secretary, we'd come in, and it was a very hot day in Austin, Texas, and we'd come in from outside, and it was like in the 90s, and so his secretary said something like, "Boy, it's really hot outside today." And he said, "Well, that's why I'm inside." And he didn't say it in any kind of unpleasant, obnoxious way, or he wasn't jerking her chain or anything. He was just saying, well, we're inside. Who cares what it's doing outside?
Exactly.
And so he has this awesome ability to keep his attention on what is essential.
Yes.
What is actually going to make a difference. And when you think about it, why do we sit around here in a nice air-conditioned building and talk about how hot it is outside, And a lot of people spend their time doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot by watching him, like we get in an elevator together, and most people make small talk in elevators. And he doesn't, He just sits there and waits till the elevator gets there, and then they get off. So I learned a lot about how to get my mind off of inessential things. And there are so many distractions in today's world that a lot of your energy can get eaten up in things like that. So he'd be one great example of a person that I've modeled a lot on how to do that.
Who else? Who else pops into your head?
Kenny Loggins is a good friend of mine for many years, and he is religious about something that I think all of us should be religious about, and that is listening to his inner creativity all the time. I mean, he will actually, we'll be riding down the road in a car, and he'll note some little lyric that just popped into his mind, or we'll be talking about one thing, and then suddenly he'll get an idea about something else. And so he's willing to listen for creativity wherever it comes from. And to me, another thing that successful people really need to do more of is take a little time each day, 10 minutes will do it, of just kind of listening to their creativity, listening to what's coming up out of themselves. Because I've gotten some of the best ideas that have turned into multi-million-dollar things in a tenth of a second. Something will just come up. And I have a spiritual practice I do, which is I come up with $1 million idea every day. That's just one of the things that I do every day. Now, 363 of them a year, I don't even bother to act on. I'd love to share the notebook with you sometime, just because
I got a similar one too.
You'd get a kick out of it. And I even go around giving them away in public, because I'm never going to act on them, and so I just like to offer them out to the world.
The beauty of that is every time you come up with a new one, the next one's twice as good as the last one, right?
Exactly.
So it's a great exercise.
Yeah.
And giving it away, is an amazing spiritual practice as well, because just that process, you just never know what'll happen, right? Another cultivations.
I came up with another one the other day that if I were in the internet marketing area more, I would do, which is called Dude Diligence, where girls write in their experience of their boyfriend. And instead of due diligence, it's dude diligence. And so I don't even know if that domain's available, but,
that's a great idea.
Let's send people scurrying for the GoDaddy accounts to see if that's available.
That's very funny. Very funny. Okay, so I'm going to give you one more. Do you have one more that pops into your mind, or should we move on?
One more person?
Yeah. Another mentor.
Well, actually, I don't want to embarrass you here, but you're actually one of the most brilliant young people I've met in a long time. In fact, do you remember what I said to you early on? You said something about stock, and I said, you were talking about the stock market, and I said, well, I want to buy stock in you. And so when you get around to selling stock in you, I want to know about it, because one of the things I have a lookout for all of the time is people that are in the next generation, so to speak, and some of my best new friends are people in the 35 to 45 zone that I'm kind of teaching certain things to, but I'm learning as much as you all are learning from me. Brian Johnson, I don't know if you've run across Brian Johnson yet. He's one of the most incredible people. He's probably 35 years old. He's got a company called philosophersnotes.com, which does little 5-minute summaries of brilliant ideas, and it just blows me away. Every time I get one of his things, it just blows me away because of the way he puts ideas together.
I heard about this guy, and I heard you were somehow friendly with him. I just heard it like 2 weeks ago, so some little birdie tweeted in my ear.
Oh,
so,
okay,
yeah.
Great. Well, yeah, I love Brian's work. It's just awesome, and he's got it figured out. He's sitting out in a villa on Bali.
I heard that. That's how I heard it, because I'm opening an office in Malaysia right now, of all things. We haven't even talked about it yet.
Oh, cool.
But,
okay.
Very interested in that whole neck of the woods and that world on multiple levels.
Me too, actually. It's a wonderful part of the world and great people that live out there and work out there. Let me see if I can think of any other great mentor types that influenced me. I had a great, for a number of years, there was a gentleman named Bob Shapiro, not the Bob Shapiro that's an attorney that was on the O.J. Simpson thing, but this is another Bob Shapiro who ran the company NutraSweet for a long time and ran Monsanto for a long time. One of the most awesome human beings I've ever met, because one thing I learned from him is that you can have head and heart connected in the business world.
Right.
You know, a lot of people in the business world are pretty darn good in the head department, but pretty deficient in the heart department. But he keeps this flow of energy going between his head and heart. Not only is this a good idea, but is this a good idea that is good for people?
Yeah.
You know, and if you keep kind of thinking about those heart kind of questions, you know, people may kid you for being soft or something like that, but it's anything but soft, you know, because it's a good long-term investment to invest in the head as well as the heart.
That and just because you're acting from heart doesn't mean it can't be real or harsh is the wrong word, but the bottom line is when you're acting from heart, sometimes you've got to take care of things the way they really are and see the world the way it really is and guide folks through that process. I think that's a great gift of the heart too. So
yeah, and also to keep coming back to that, you know, like early on I learned to meditate. I've been meditating now for about, let's see, since 1973, so 36 years. I meditate every day. I learned from Maharishi and TM and all that, and but he inspired me early on because there was a situation happened where one time they couldn't find his passport, and everybody was rushing around trying to find his passport at the airport, and they weren't going to get on this plane because they couldn't find it. And he said, okay, everybody just sit down and meditate for 5 minutes. Instead of rushing around and going crazy, sit down and meditate for 5 minutes. And suddenly somebody remembered, oh, I know where it is. And they got it.
yeah,
You know?
it's in my wallet or in my pocket. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And it's like my mom used to run around the house with her reading glasses on her head saying, have you seen my glasses?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
and so the answer is in there. You know,
Right.
it was just always in there. And you just got to trust that.
Right. No, that's I have a rule that drives some people crazy, and that is, you know, in my space, I don't have noise. So like I never drive with the radio on, for example. I don't like noise because I always thought that if you become addicted to noise, it means that what's going on inside your brain is usually a jumbled pile of poop. Now, I won't say that for everyone. It is for me. And I love that quiet time, and I avoid it, you know, at all costs in my space as well. And it gives me a lot more time to have those $1 million ideas because I'm like you in that regard. I document everything. You know, I don't let any nuance escape, which brings me to my next question, and that is, I've been mentoring, people in my business here, and one nice thing about having a startup company is we attract really cool people. And being around that younger energy not only makes and keeps you younger, but it allows you to see success pathways. And I always think of them in a way kind of like, I I gotta think of the guy's name. I don't want to get off on too far of a tangent here, but I like to visualize energetic forms. So I see people, I feel them more than I see them now. My wife kind of turned me on to thinking that way. And paying attention to the nuances, success nuances. And one of the most powerful skills someone can learn is how to write great proposals.
Yes,
Okay.
if you learn how to write great proposals, you'll always have a job,
Oh
too.
my God, absolutely. And what it means when you can articulate a beginning, a middle, and an end, and a pathway to get there, so the what and the how and the what it's going to deliver, and articulate that on a single page, you can own immeasurable wealth and immeasurable numbers of minds. So I was talking to one of our young mentors here in Traffic Geyser yesterday about that, because he's still, and he won't mind me saying this, but he's sloppy yet. He doesn't know how to see things through someone else's eyes. And I think it's a combination of a sensitivity, it's an apathy, but learning how to feel someone else's feelings and experience and be able to imagine their experience and be able to learn their voice is another incredible skill. So again, I say all that basically because I'm curious about your pathway to mastering that, because I see you as a master of being able to experience someone else's point of view, being able to articulate very well, and you've clearly made, created, sold lots and lots of properties, both businesses and ideas over your time. And I believe that part of what gives you your skill set, your very unique skill set, is your ability to see, experience, feel, and maneuver nuances. So tell me about that magical experience.
That's a great question. I appreciate that question. One thing I do is I do what I call loop of awareness with people. And I've described it in one of my books. I can't remember at the moment which one it was, but the idea...
One of the 33.
Oh, yeah, one of the 30. What I do is I go over there as best I can in my imagination and feel what it would feel like to be you talking to me, and then I come back over here and I keep that loop going. I've actually done it 1,000 times since we've been sitting here, and I just feel as best I can what you might be feeling and how you might be thinking and that kind of thing. Now, you know, I've counseled 20,000 or so people over the years, and so it gets easier as you do that. You know, when I first started, it wasn't probably very graceful, but the intention is to simply feel what the other person is feeling and see the world from their eyes. Where it comes in really handy is, like, I will actually go into a bookstore before I write a book, and I'll go over and stand and look at the shelf that my book is going to be on, and I'll stand there and put myself in the space of the customer and say, what would make me want to pull that book off the shelf? What color should it be? What should it say? What's the title? And I kind of look at it from that point of view, rather than what can I teach people. I go over there and kind of feel, what would they most want to learn? And how can I show that to them? It comes in really handy also in avoiding mistakes, actually, because, like, if you avoid hiring errors in business, you wipe out about 50% of the hassle factor. You know, if you
and the expense.
And the expense, yes. And we recently had a great example. My son, who works in my business now, committed a hiring error that cost, you know, probably by the time it all gets done, $40,000-$50,000. And if we could have avoided that hiring error, and so when he came in to talk to me about it, I didn't give him a hard time. I just said, what did you miss the first time you met the person that you thought you were supposed to pay attention to, but you overrode it? What was that thing? And he worked on that for a while, and then suddenly he realized what it was. And that was the key to the whole thing, you know? Yeah.
What I would love more than anything, and I actually registered a whole bunch of domains and I created a brainstorming topic, but the project was going to be called Nuance.
Nuance.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love that.
So it'd be going around and talking to like 50 of the greatest minds, you know, just finding, and part of the whole project would be dependent upon being able to articulate the question that would inspire the nuanced response. So I did it in my opinion, a very sloppy, inarticulate way with you. Obviously, you caught on it because you can read people so well and you knew what I meant. But being able to communicate that and be able to draw and extract that, much like you just did with your partner in that case. But I think that would be an incredible project that would be worthy of teaching in primary school, in fact.
So do I,
Yeah.
totally. It should be part of the curriculum in the first grade.
Right.
Along with things like how to listen to another person and how to work through an emotional issue, those kinds of things.
Emotional vocabulary is one of my favorite phrases,
Love
right?
that,
And
yeah.
that would, again, that is the key to the elimination of war, poverty, and pain on this planet.
I completely agree.
Yeah. So good. And I promise to everyone who's watching right now, they're like, when are you going to get to the juicy, how do I make money crap?
Yeah.
But we are there.
Yeah.
And so here's my next question. And this is another part of, everyone who's watching this right now might not know all the deals you've done. And again, it isn't about money. It's about, to some degree, money's keeping score. And I don't know if we talked about money. I'd be very curious what your definition of money is and what it means to you before I ask you the next question.
Well, money is a tangible way of monitoring the flow of energy. It's a way you can carry around bits of energy in a tangible form. In the old days, you had to carry around a bag full of clanking coins and that kind of thing. And I still recommend that you have a few bags of clanking coins stashed away somewhere in your house in your safe deposit box and that kind of thing, just in case the whole
bars
thing's
of gold underneath.
That was one of the first things I bought when I started making money in life. I packed away some. I have a bit of a pack rat aspect of myself, and so I packed away various bits of gold and things like that, which is, I think, a good thing to do. But the way to think of money really is as a flow of energy. It's a flow of energy through the world, and that if you keep that in mind, it keeps you from the unsavory aspect of hoarding, because it has the same effect as if you hoard a breath. I'm going to hoard this breath for a while. I'm not going to really give that much energy out. I'm going to try to monitor the amount that I give out my breath as I talk to you here, so I got plenty to live for myself. See, once you do that way, you've got your attention on the wrong thing, because it's really about the flow of communication.
Yeah.
See, if I can make you richer as I'm making myself richer, wow, what a great day that is, because then at the end of the day, next time you see me, you can say, hey, come on over.
Exactly.
And so I kind of look at it that way, as keeping that flow of energy and making that flow of energy bigger and bigger and bigger, and being able to process larger amounts of energy moving through my life. That's the way I look at it.
That's good. Yeah, I think of it, I've got a couple different philosophies. One of them that I've enjoyed, it's not the one, but it's one of them, is applause. I think of it as a form of applause. So continuity is my favorite form of applause, right?
Yes.
Because that just means people are clapping all the time, saying, yeah, love that stuff. Love
Yeah,
that stuff.
love that stuff.
And if you got a 24-hour applause-a-thon going on, you can always turn down the volume. But it's nice to know it's there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Yes, I figured that one out early on when I launched the Spiritual Cinema Circle. I had other subscription continuity businesses before then, but I figured if we could get 15 or 20,000 people around the world all paying $25 for some good movies every month, we'd have a nice business,
That's right.
And the people love it. And yeah, I don't plan to start there, though. I have in mind the ultimate continuity business that I'll talk to you about one of these days. It's gradually forming in the back of my mind here.
Yeah, no, I love it.
Yeah.
And that's what I always... we always say around here is thank God for Traffic Geyser. It's been, a great gift in that way. And, to us, the math is easy, when you start looking at, 10,000 subscribers, it turns into $1 million a month. It's a great thing. So every business, when you start thinking that way, it transforms many, many lives rapidly. So, So I'm going to get to the big question that I had for you, which is you've made lots of money, and how do you determine what is worth investing your time and resources on? Because if you have, let's say you have $1 million idea a day and you pick 2 of them a year, okay, which probably isn't incorrect. You're usually, it seems like you're flipping a couple of little mini businesses every year based on the time I've known you. And you're all about consistency. right? So you've consistently picked some winners. You've consistently had buyers. You've consistently gotten paid. Some of them have paid more than others. But you've developed some skills that allow you to identify what they are. And give me a little framework here. What is your system?
Well, I get bombarded with pitches. So I have to be vigilant to the point of paranoid about what I pick, and I try to do a kind of a benign paranoia, but it's always, there are so many things that come at me all the time that I have a whole filter system built in before I even have to listen to it, So I kind of have 2 or 3 screens of things that, that people do for me before I see it myself. So that may not be everybody's problem, but a key thing for me is, does it fit in the sweet spot of what I'm most interested in creating on the planet?
Right.
So businesses I tend to invest in and tend to support are ones that are doing something useful that at the end of the day are making the world a better place. So that's just one filter.
So you've got a
system.
personal rule system, which basically is something that you identify with, and it's purpose driven, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my next door neighbor, much wealthier man than I am, he's a big Beverly Hills divorce lawyer. And so he's made a fortune in helping manage people's pain as they're going through divorce. Well, that would be a job that I would last about 24 hours on, and I'd run screaming. I'd rather
vomit drinking comes to mind. A lot more fun. So.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, it's a rule system. That's a good way to put it. I have a kind of rule that it's got to fit in my sweet spot of what I want to really promote here, and is it something that I myself, as I'm doing it and learning from it and appreciating it, am I actually going to increase my own level of feeling good and growth and expansion in myself? Okay. It's got to be fun too. I have a big fun filter because it's at this stage of the game. If it's not fun, I mean, realistically, every human being gets 25 or 30,000 days here on the planet, and I've used up 20,000 of mine or so. So I'm really focused on, I want my time here to be a lot of fun. And I found actually that if you combine fun with contribution to people, it creates a tremendous amount of wealth. And so I actually don't feel like I've had a job in so long. I can't even remember what having a job feels like, although I probably work more than most people who work for a living. I mean, if you actually think about what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, it's stuff that might look like work, but it's fun for me. It's nonstop fun.
Right. So there's the so I took a few notes here, and
I got another one.
No, go ahead. I'm going to go through my system, what I hear in a moment, and then I'm going to share what I don't hear in a second, because that is more important than what you're saying to, I think, the people who are listening here. So keep going.
Okay, another big filter for me is integrity. That, by my rough count, about 3% of the people that I run into are in integrity. And by integrity, I mean specifically they speak honestly, they don't conceal the truth, they're in touch with their feelings, they're not lying to themselves about how they feel, they keep their agreements, that's number 3, and they take responsibility for things when things emerge. In other words, instead of blame, they take responsibility. So I call those the 4 pillars of integrity.
Okay, so those are speaking honestly, being in touch with your emotions, keeping your agreements, and taking responsibility.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I look for people that are doing those 4 things when I get involved with a person, because at a certain point in life, it's not about what you do, it's about who you do it with. And are you doing it with people that have high integrity? And I have learned the hard way of being in situations where I overlooked one of those things, or maybe 2 or 3 of those things in the first aspects of the relationship. And boy, did that come back to bite me later. I mean, I've actually made multi-million-dollar mistakes by overlooking a couple of things like that. So that's something to really feed into your filter system.
It's so interesting because when we were talking about money earlier and about the multi-million-dollar mistakes, if you were going to value the value of the time, so let's say it was a $2 million mistake, which cost you 10 years of effort, which would you rather have back? Okay? And so, and I know what the answer to that one is, especially as the older you get, right?
Yeah.
So that really is a foundational pillar in a question, which is, who gives a crap about $2 million if it's 10 years of whatever it took, right?
Well, I remember the first time I made a big hiring error mistake myself, which ended up costing maybe $100,000 to fix. A person embezzled some money from me. I had to have them arrested, and it was a whole But I counted up the actual money was maybe $100,000, but the amount of energy I had invested in it and had to have things done associated with it were, it ate up the better part of a half a year, 3/4 of a year, or something like that. And so I remember when I sat down with my wife, when the whole thing got resolved, I said, let's just sit here and make sure we get the lesson that we have paid so dearly for. So let's just sit here until we figure out what the lesson was,
Right.
And we sat there for 3 or 4 hours kind of working on different elements of it, and by golly, we collected at least $100,000 worth of learnings out of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that leads to another thing, which is learning how to say an enlightened, conscious no is really important. It's almost probably more important to success than saying an enlightened yes, because yeses are fun. It's fun to say, I'll make that investment, or yes, I'll take the deal, or whatever, or yes, I'll write that book. But learning how to say no, that doesn't quite fit in the sweet spot. Maybe I love the idea, but it's not really in the sweet spot of what I love to be doing right now. That enlightened no, that's a multi-million-dollar thing right there.
Yeah, it is. It's a great skill. So I'm going to repeat what I hear here, or what I've heard, which is all about fitting into your purpose. Does it grow? Does it expand you as a person? Is it fun? Is it going to contribute? Is it effortless? Okay, because a big part of your life, and I've observed this when I've visited you, it'd be like, I remember we had our conversation once, we were sitting around in your office, and you said, this is what my life's like every single day. Some people might call this work. It is not work for me. I just, you are the master of your domain. I couldn't help it. And so operating in integrity and saying no. There were more here, but I'll tell you what I didn't hear. And this is where the mistakes get made so often. You got newbies out there and people who want to get rich quick and da-da-da-da-da. They are in pain, and they make decisions based upon the pain that they're in right now. So what's going to make me the most money? What's going to be the least amount of work? And there's a big distinction between effortless and least amount of work, which comes from a place which the universe never rewards you for, which is how can I get something for nothing?
Or how can I avoid pain?
Right.
That's a terrible question to ask, because then the universe has got to give you more pain to see how much pain you can avoid.
How can I get something for nothing? Well, I'll tell you what, you're going to get a bag full of nothing. You like fuzzy pockets? Because that's all that's going to be in there, baby. So this is really a great exercise. I think there's a whole product and a whole process that could be created just on this alone, which is, you could create an amazing product, where you talk to great investors, very successful people, and you'd go through this process and say, what's your process? What do you go through? And then what isn't, right? Because the isn'ts are clear pathways to failure. So the next one that we've kind of talked about a little bit is picking partners. Now, you kind of explain that in your pillar of integrity process here, which again, I'm going to repeat, which is less than 3% of all the people you come in contact with. I'm curious, where'd you get that number? Is
just counting.
You've literally.
Oh yeah, remember I'm an old Stanford statistics guy. I'm always calculating the stats, And
that's so good.
So actually, Stephen King, the writer, he said the same thing one time in a totally different context. He's an awesome writer. And so.
I happen to believe you are nuts dead on, okay?
Yeah.
And that's just pure intuition, and usually my intuition, which is, I'm not a math guy, but I'm always calculating. It's like, I think that's something that we share in common.
Yeah.
But I happen to, that's why I ask, is because my intuition's screaming at me saying deadly accurate.
Yeah, and it may seem pessimistic, but I think it's actually incredibly optimistic. You know, the fact that we've created a planet where 3% of the people can actually do that.
That's not bad, yeah, all things considered.
Yeah.
So speaking honestly, in touch with your emotions, big part, and that's why we've talked about what we've been talking about, keeping your agreements and taking personal responsibility.
Big one, the last one. Because
admitting you're wrong. And
blame eats up so much energy.
Oh,
in the
yeah.
world.
Yeah, maintaining the lies.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, and also it's not what you do, but who you do it with, which brings us to picking partners. Because as we all know, going it alone usually takes twice as long or 10 times longer. And a big part of the book is about being excellent or being, you know, operating in your genius space. So, you know, and again, finding people who can be, you know, not everyone can be operating in their genius space. Unfortunately, as I can't remember who it was, the judge in Caddyshack says the world needs ditch diggers too. You know, it sounds like such a jerky thing to say, but it's, and some people will genuinely love that, which is wonderful. But let's talk about, you know, just tell me a little bit. What do you look for? I'm going to write these down.
Yeah. Well, I have my series of questions that I ask people that are sitting in my office that I will happily tell you about, and we can sell someday.
Okay, yeah.
So,
yeah, we don't have to do them all. So give me a couple little character traits.
One thing that I'm a keen student of is body language, and I have learned a tremendous amount. You know, at one point when I was doing more public, you know, television stuff and that kind of thing, I would go on shows like various talk shows, and I remember they had me on once where I was critiquing the body language of Michael Jackson when he'd been accused of some crime, and Tanya Harding, the figure skater.
Was he guilty?
Yes, he was, unfortunately. Yeah. And so, but I'm a keen student of body language and always have been ever since I was a kid. So I like to talk to people and watch how they respond to different things. You know, like I had a person in my office making a pitch last week about wanting me to invest in their startup. And I said, well, where are you now, and how many people are using it? You know, and I watch his eyes carefully. You know, does his eyes look guilty that he's not getting bigger uptake, or is he actually going to tell me? Is he going to access the information and just tell me the information? You know, because I want to know if there's 2,000 people using it.
Yeah.
When he hears that question, no, he heard it as, oh, I'm not doing things right. You know, so I wanted to zero in on that.
So did he lie to you?
He did lie to me.
Okay.
And so I don't go past that. I say, I noticed when I said that, I didn't say you're lying to me. I said, I noticed when I asked you that your eyes were kind of shifting off to the side. It looked like maybe you felt kind of guilty or something. And he said, yeah, you know, I want you to like me. And I want to tell you things that make you like me. And I said, well, let's stop right there. You know, I don't care whether I like you or not. You know, you shouldn't care whether you like me, you know, all that stuff. Let's just focus in on telling each other the truth, and then maybe if we get good at that, we'll like each other.
Yeah.
You know, there's no way you can make me like you by lying to me, you know, because I'm sensitive to that.
Right.
And so it shifted the conversation. 2 minutes later, he was in a different space with me, and we could really have a communication with each other.
Great.
So I pay attention to a lot of those kind of things. Another thing I do is really look into people's past. I do my share of due diligence because I want to find out if the way they're behaving in the world is consistent with what they're saying. You know, so I want to know things about that person. And if you notice in normal life, whenever a person is accused of a crime, they always talk to the person's parents. You know, like I was listening on the way over here, somebody's been accused of a murder or something, and they talked to the person's parents, and the parent said, oh, my daughter's not a murderer. They used an is thing. They confused being with doing. And a lot of people make that confusion. They say, oh, yes, I've done 75 bad things, but I am not a bad person. You know, well, I want to know about that confusion between being and doing. This may sound a little spacey or
This is great.
metaphysical.
I'm you know, boiling this down into nice little distinct steps. So
yeah, and so it's just in general inside, you want to make a big distinction between being and doing, in the sense that go ahead and feel good about yourself as a person, but also monitor carefully what you do and its effects on other people. Because it doesn't do any good to say, yeah, I did steal that car, but I'm not a thief. You know, it's you want to just go ahead and acknowledge whatever it is you've perpetrated out there. And so, like a person a while back that came and pitched me on something, had gotten in trouble with the federal authorities and had actually done a couple of years as a guest of the feds in one of their country club facilities.
I think I know who you're talking about.
I don't know actually,
Okay.
but he lives up near me.
Yes.
Okay, and so I wanted to find, what did you learn that was worth 2 years of sitting around and learning? You know,
Yeah.
and could he give me a compelling statement of what he learned?
And
from
the
it?
answer is?
The answer is no. He hadn't
no.
learned.
See, it's
you
gonna
know?
happen again.
It's gonna happen again.
I happen to know exactly who you're talking about because I didn't need a lot of clues. So
Yeah.
and it's because part of it is because when you're talking about past behavior,
Yeah.
just so happens that little tiny advertisement. You didn't have to tell me too much. It's a small world. There's certain behaviors. It's pretty easy to deduce, and that's very, very good. So, okay.
Have they learned from their mistakes? You see, because one reason I grew, like many people, to just absolutely cringe whenever I saw George Bush on television was, somebody asked him once on an interview, what kind of mistakes have you made? And the guy said, I can't think of any right now.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Run for the exits at that point. If the CEO of a company had said that, the stock would have plummeted the next day. And it's just a matter of details now, because the moment, it's all about that process, like the automatic pilot of the airplane. It drifts, and then it catches the drift and corrects.
Totally.
It drifts, catches the drift, and corrects. It's all about drifting and shifting and getting back to center again. And if you get over here and say, well, I'm not wrong, or things are going okay. Yeah, I happen to be pointed toward Fiji instead of Honolulu, but what the heck, I'm right. You get so entrenched so quickly in life, and life is moving at such a pace these days. It's now we're all driving a Ferrari, we're not rattling along in an ox cart anymore, so you need to make those kind of decisions really quickly.
Yep. No, that's great. So I'm going to tell you what I heard here because we've got a few minutes left, and I want to ask the big question.
Okay.
All right. So here's what I heard. Number one, body language. You just pay attention to how people react, they respond, and you know how to read it. So some of it is the science, and the other part of it, you just pay attention to that, and it's comfort. Also, you're clear that you establish the rules of gameplay, which was, this doesn't have to do with you and me liking each other. This has to do with you telling me the truth and understanding what our outcome is. Okay. Another one is past behavior or due diligence in that case, both of which being the same. Another one, big one, this is great, being versus doing, and understanding the distinction between those two. And again, it has to do with having an emotional vocabulary. Which leads us to the fifth, which is, again, magnificent, conscious acknowledgement of mistakes. It really comes down to their commitment to growth.
Yes.
Is a huge part of that.
Are they more committed to being right or learning from every situation?
Right, or learning, yeah. And these are great, and I would suspect that if we had a little bit more time and we could focus on this for 4 hours, we could probably create the ultimate handbook to never getting in bed with the wrong partner. It wouldn't take a lot of time, which hopefully for some people watching this right now, their little wheels are spinning. The opportunities, the immense wealth that this universe has for us is magnifique. So let me ask you the big question that I think I get all the time. I promised at the beginning, and that is getting started. And again, this is where we kind of come back. I'm going to put up the fancy book here, The Big Leap. This isn't about getting started, but it is getting past your stuff so you can get there and arrive there. But so often I get, people who are writing and they're like, yeah, I want to make money online. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do this. And I'll be like, but I don't know where to begin. What would you tell someone?
I would say a couple of things. One is ideally, sit down and get quiet for 10 minutes or 10 seconds or 10 hours or whatever it takes, and ask yourself, what is my genius that I would most like to contribute to the world? What is it that I know how to do or know how to be, or what is something I have done that I'm an absolute genius at? And ask yourself if there's a product in that. Like our friend Ariel Ford. Well, she is an absolute genius at having manifested a mate. You know, just a wonderful guy she created at age 43 or 44. She'd never been married before. And so now she's a genius at that, in my opinion, because all you need to do, you know, you don't say, well, did Albert Einstein, how did he do in 7th grade geometry? You know, we don't really care because he's created something in the world that's worth paying attention to. Well, so start with that inner inquiry about what it is in there that you most have to contribute, because that's what I do when I'm teaching a seminar for people who are entrepreneurs, budding entrepreneurs. That's where I have them start. So ideally, you can find something down in there that really is worth sharing, that you have your heart behind. If you can't find something like that, find a product or a service that you can market that you genuinely think could make the world a better place. You know, like I'm just now about to invest in a business that's created a new type of teleconference technology. And it is so cool that when I first used it, I said, wow, why didn't I think of this?
I know who that is. That's good.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Well, anything that can make that many people's lives that easier, that quickly for 40 or 50 bucks a month, I mean, sign me up, you know? And so it took me about a tenth of a second to, you know, once I did my due diligence and everything, to figure out that I wanted to put some money into this.
So the people passed the test.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, really? Big time.
That's great.
Yeah, super big time.
Okay. And is there anything else?
Well, I think to realize that we talked about money as a form of energy. Actually, love and attention is a fine, fine currency that we have circulating on our planet. And so love and attention are the finest form of wealth, because if you find out how to circulate love and attention in a good way, you will create all the kind of wealth you need. So it's where you place your attention, and whether you place that attention with love on whatever it is you're doing, that creates that feedback loop of more love and attention coming back your way. And so I think if you keep your attention on that, everything is going to occur in a fairly miraculous fashion.
I happen to agree. Yep. Manifestation and what's that word? It's turning lead into gold.
Alchemy.
Oh, I love that word.
Yeah,
It's one of
me
my
too.
favorites. So I think that is the alchemy of life. It
I
really
do too.
is. So I'm going to summarize what you said, and then we will close down here. So the first thing is getting quiet and asking yourself the question, which is, what is my genius that I most want to contribute? And what am I a genius in? And what could I contribute, and where can I operate from a place in my heart? Or find a product or service that can make the world a better place. And this is an area of growth. Again, it comes back to that emotional intelligence we talk about, which is realizing that money is energy, and that love and attention is currency, which is also wealth. And again, it's so amazing how that works when the law of reciprocity works. You know, one of the strategies that we teach is giving away information, because people get to meet you, they become your fans, and they naturally want to give, and they want to be part of your life. And you know, what's so great now is when you talked about, you know, living life in a Ferrari speed world now. The fact that you can communicate with billions of people basically free of charge, and there's nothing in between you and them, and it isn't about money anymore. I love to say it's not about technology, it's about psychology. And prior to technology, it was about money, because there was someone who dominated and controlled the flow of information. It doesn't exist anymore. So the immense wealth that we have available by being able to just share and distribute information is unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. I really appreciate that you're leading the way. What I first recognized about you when I saw the things you were developing was that they do come out of this contribution mindset. You know, that it's not about what's in it for me, it's about what can I contribute to the world and what can I help people give away, and allowing that to bring back wealth.
Oh, thank you. That's the great thing is it's effortless.
Yeah.
As you see, you know, it's so, because again, we we're, you know, like brothers from another mother, a few years apart, but other than that, you know, there's no distinction. I philosophically agree with everything you say, and the beauty of this is that it is an effortless gift. So I think let's close this up because we're reaching the end of our tape, but I want to turn to everyone here. I want to thank you. I want to thank you, Gay. You are one of the greatest people in my life. It is a pleasure and a joy to know you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, everyone, I hope you got as much out of this as I got out of it, and I can't wait to share another great video with another great person soon. Bye-bye.